What is going on today, guys? All right, so today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new figure that just dropped, just came out, shipping on pre-orders from Amazon right now, Shadow of Spawn from Mcfarlane Toys from the Mortal Kombat 11 line. And I'm late to the modern Mcfarlane Toys Spawn stuff. I collected a lot of, Spawn stuff back in the 90s from Mcfarlane Toys. I was big into comics, loved the action figures, but I got out of collecting action figures for about 10 to 15 years. And when I got back into it about 10 years ago, I didn't really pay much attention to Mcfarlane. Stuck, honestly, mostly to Marvel Legends. And it wasn't until Mcfarlane took over the DC stuff that I started to kind of reappreciate Mcfarlane Toys and started not only collecting DC multiverse stuff, but starting to search out some good Spawn figures. For the last couple of years that I've been picking up stuff from Mcfarlane, great figures, all of them, great figures. Love most of their stuff, have a decent sized collection of Mcfarlane stuff. But I never saw a Spawn that just hit me like, oh yeah, that's definitely like the Spawn. And when I saw the promo photos for this guy, that's what I felt. So, hopefully, as we crack this guy open, that feeling will remain, but we'll have to wait and see. So, let's go ahead, let's open this guy up and see what we have inside. Alright, so, we got him out of the package here. Let's take a look at accessories real quick. First, of course, we get the obligatory stand there, which he doesn't need. Then, of course, we get a couple of these hell chains or Spawn chains or whatever they are. And they're both basically the same. They're just kind of twisted in different ways. But if you wanted to form them into just about whatever shape you wanted, you could with just a little bit of heat. But they're both the same. And they've got the little peg there on them so that he can hold them in his hand or whatever you want to do with them. Interesting accessories. They're fine. Whatever. But that's pretty much it for him. So, let's talk about the good first. This guy, I love just the overall look. I love the smooth finish on this guy. It looks like the old school Spawn from the comics that I used to read. I don't want to call it a complaint, but it's certainly something that I guess I wasn't as big of a fan of with newer Spawn figures, in that, they all kind of look like they evolved from that Spawn movie in the 90s. Now, I actually really like that Spawn movie from the 90s. I think it holds up well. I think it's a very underrated movie, but the way that the Spawn suit was in that movie was, for lack of a better term, it was very Venom-esque, okay? It looked like a Venom suit, the way it came over him and stuff, and looked like it was alive and slimy, and, all the Spawn figures, the more recent ones, have all kind of had that same textured look on the outside of the suit, which is fine, there's nothing wrong with that, but I really do like this, this look better. This makes it look more like a costume, which is what he originally looked like in the comics, and I love it. I really like that. The sculpt is great. A lot of reuse here from other Spawn figures, but still looks good. We've got nice details on the paint there with the silver, more silver. We've got the silver belt. We've got the silver right there on his chain for his cape. The face sculpt looks amazing. Very well done there. Love the bright, glowing green eyes. I mean, the cape looks good, and they kind of gave that realistic kind of living texture to the cape, which, I'm fine with that because the suit itself looks great. You've got the pouches there, the hands are done well, the paint work on this is pretty good, not perfect. I can see some little imperfections in the white here that comes down, where it almost looks like maybe it was double printed on accident on mine. I don't know if you guys can see that there. But it is noticeable to me if it is not noticeable to you guys. Not a deal breaker. I've certainly seen worse, but it's there. Okay? But overall, the sculpt looks really good, and the paint's, okay. It's where you would want it to be, and it looks pretty good. And if you're not up close and personal looking at all the little details, you would notice that there are some tiny imperfections in there. Unless you're me, and then you're going to notice them. But overall, paint sculpt is good. I like the suit. Okay, articulation, I'm not even going to go into standard Mcfarlane stuff. It does have the newer ankles, which is nice. But other than that, again, standard stuff as far as, you know, the double jointed elbows and knees and standard wrists and ankles and hips and torso joints and head joints and all that kind of stuff. So all in all, good. Not perfect, but good. Now let's get to the bad, okay? I hate these shoulders. I've had other figures from Mcfarlane where the shoulders do this same thing, where this stupid ring around the shoulder leaves a gap and pops out of place and sometimes gets caught and stuck depending on how you move the arm. And this arm is bad. This one's actually way worse. Big gap if you move his arm around too much. Just a big hole right there in the sculpt. And I don't know why, if this is just a technique as far as the articulation goes that's cheaper to engineer. I don't know why Mcfarlane uses it. I think it's just bad. You know, I know they want to stand out and be different from Hasbro or whatever, but you can get the same thing with butterfly joints that nowadays are not difficult to manufacture. And so why we're getting these stupid rings around the shoulders that, again, look at that, leaving gaps there when you move his arm around. I don't know why. And this also could be fixed if you simply shortened up the peg to where the arm actually sat in a little bit more, so that the ring here, which you can see moves around, didn't have as much space to move around, but yet they don't. And that's a big disappointment on a figure I was really excited about, that I think otherwise looks really good. And yet if you pose him, look, he's got holes right there in his shoulders if you just want to have him in a kind of neutral pose there. He's got obvious holes in these shoulder gaps. And I'm sorry, that's just unacceptable as far as I'm concerned. When there is other companies who've been doing this type of stuff for this level of articulation way longer and have come up with better solutions to the problem of faux butterfly joints, the fact that Mcfarlane is using this crap is annoying. It's bad. Yeah. And it's a disappointment with this figure. Again, this could have been fixed by shortening the, shoulder pegs if you wanted to. Something to prevent these huge gaps from coming here. And yeah, on this particular figure, the cape covers up some of it, but there's so many figures out there Mcfarlane is putting these on that doesn't cover this up. And that's just ridiculous. And again, I'm repeating myself, but it's disappointing. So let's go ahead and throw this guy up with some other figures and see how he stacks up. All right, so for a couple of other Spawn figures that I have here on the left, we have Haunt on the right. We've got, I don't even remember what version of Spawn this is. It's from the Mortal Kombat line. I don't remember what it's called, but a couple of really good figures. And while I do think that this Spawn figure, this new figure in the middle, just the look of it and the sculpt of it is much better than, let's say, this other Spawn figure we have from the same line. If you notice the shoulders, these other two figures have the exact same style of shoulders, which again, I'm not a fan of, but they are done in a way in which you do not get those ridiculous gaps there above the shoulders. And you can move the arm around and you don't get that gap. I'm still not a fan of this style of articulation, but no gap, no hole in the shoulders. Same thing with Haunt over here. You don't get that gap. No matter what you do with the shoulder, that ring stays far enough in that it does not create a gap. Those two were better executed figures, even though I think sculpt-wise, this new Spawn is a much, much better sculpt than either of these two figures. All right, so for some other 7-inch scale comparisons, we've got from NECA Lothar on the left. On the right, we've got from DC Essentials or DC Collectibles Essentials, whatever it's called. Of course, we've got Rebirth Batman. And, I mean, this Spawn is an amazingly sculpted figure. Maybe not as much as the Lothar on the left, but certainly just as good as the Batman on the right. But again, with the shoulders, it just blows me away. Look at the shoulders on this guy and look at the shoulders on this guy, and just the way they're designed, they're so much better just for presentation purposes And yes, I understand these may not have quite the range of movement that this Spawn figure has due to this design, but I would rather have less range of movement and not huge gaps between the shoulder and the torso than what I have with this. So while overall sculpt and everything else, I think this Spawn figure is going to look fantastic in any 7-inch line collection you have, whether you're going all Spawn or mixing, Spawn with DC characters, with NECA figures, whatever it is, I think he fits in well. Again, with the shoulder, it's just a big mistake and a big disappointment. All right, so let's talk about price here real quick. And retail on this guy is 20 bucks. That's what I picked him up for. Got him on pre-order on Amazon, 20 bucks. And that is the going retail price. I have noticed that there are a few places that are out of stock on him. Much like me, a lot of people were looking forward to this guy. And so, of course, the question is it worth 20 bucks if that's what you can find him for? And overall, I say yes. As I said, it's a great sculpt. And the paint is good enough. And for $20, there's really not much to complain about. But again, just standing here and looking at the guy and seeing this gap, and I tried to push this one in and it keeps falling back out. Whether this is 100% just the design of the figure and the consequences you get of going with this style, which I don't think it necessarily is, but certainly that engineering does not help, or whether it's just a simple matter of the fact that the pegs on these shoulders here are just too long to properly seat into the torso to where you don't have these gaps forming. Either way, it's a bad design. I mean, it just is. When it is such a simple fix, even if you do not redesign the shoulders, shorten the pegs up, Mcfarlane, because I don't want to see, look at that. I barely move the arm and a large gap shows up in his shoulders. This is not cool. This is not cool for a figure that I know a lot of people have been waiting on, a more classic Spawn. So yeah, look, I'm not mad that I got it. I paid 20 bucks for it. It's gonna go on the shelf and I'm gonna put his arms in a position where you can't see the gaps between the torso and those stupid shoulder rings, but I'm gonna know they're there. And I'm still going to be disappointed whenever I look at this figure. And I don't buy these things to be disappointed. I buy them because, they bring a little bit of joy to your life when you pick up something new like this. And so, again, use that word, I'm disappointed. So, there you go, guys. That's what I have to say about that. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and we will talk to you later.